this new blog came out with this new vulnerability. One of my guys, he rolled this collab notebook out and just said, yeah, it's in these two already. I mean, that would have been like a week of work before, right? I mean, it's like, so for these very, like, you would think simple questions.
Yeah.
As the folks with the expertise that are involved in like building these tools can really focus in the innovation area that makes life fun and interesting.
Hi, I'm Boaz Ashkenazy, and I'm excited that you're tuning in to the Shift AI podcast, a show that explores what it takes to thrive and adapt to the changing workplace in the digital age of remote work and AI. In this special episode, recorded live at Seattle AI Week, I'm thrilled to have Dr. Alfred as our guest. Leading threat operations and security for Google Cloud's Fortune 500 customers, Andre brings a unique perspective on the intersection of AI and cybersecurity. From his non-traditional journey starting as a high school help desk operator to earning his PhD in leading security operations at scale, Andre's story demonstrates the power of persistence and continuous learning. If you're interested in understanding the real security threats we're not thinking about, or Andre's vision for creating the jobs of the future rather than letting technology define them, you are not going to want to miss this episode. We also want to send out a special thank you to Western Governors University for making this live recording possible during Seattle AI Week. This is going to be a great show, and we're super excited to share this conversation about cybersecurity in the AI era. Let's get to it. I want to first start by introducing myself and telling you a little story about myself. The first question I'm going to ask you is about your journey, so I'm going to start by talking about my journey. So I am from California originally, and I know that it doesn't look like it, but I was recruited to play college basketball at the University of California. So that was my entry into the university system, and I had the benefit of graduating and moving to San Francisco during the dot-com boom. And so it was a very interesting time for me, and I lived that moment in time, which feels a lot like this moment in time, to be honest with you. And when that crashed and burned in 2000, I moved to the University of Washington. I decided to come to Seattle and study at the University of Washington. And I spent most of my career after graduating building companies and raising money. And when the pandemic hit, I joined Facebook and worked in the enterprise engineering org inside Facebook. And that was really my first exposure to AI and some of those engineers that were working with us. And left to start another company. And while I was at Facebook, I started this podcast. And this was before the name change. I didn't really know what was coming. Definitely didn't know ChatGPT was coming. And the team that I worked on at Facebook was enterprise engineering, and we built tools for our employees. Nothing we did got out into the world. It was all for employees. And so the podcast started as a podcast about the future of work. And when I left, GeekWire picked it up and syndicated it, and we started to see more and more people from the AI space come on the show. This was in, February of 2023 is when we started to see a lot of people from the AI community. And because I live here, it was a lot of folks from here. It was people like Matt McElwain and Oren Etzioni and a lot of startups in this Seattle area. And so even though as the show has grown, now we have like the head of AI at Salesforce on the show and DocuSign and Slack, these bigger companies that are finally kind of doing. When it first started, it was really the Seattle ecosystem and a lot of people in this room, but also people that have been hanging out all week that were really the beginning of what made this podcast really, really great. And so I'm really, really excited to be here with you today, and I'm really excited to talk with you. So welcome to the Shift AI podcast. It's great to have you.
Oh, thank you. I'm glad to be here and, chat, share my story. Hopefully it resonates with people. I guess, if I talk about myself for a second, Andre, I do live in this area. I've been up here for around 15 years now, originally from Louisiana. I work for Google in our product security business. I run just about all of our threat operations from our malware reverse engineering function. We build all of the content for our security products to find threats in customers' environments, and we're responsible for the security operations for many Fortune 500 companies, day in and day out. So it's a fun time in cyber and AI, right? Every morning you're like, what's going to happen?
Yeah.
Right? So I'm glad to be here.
Well, we're going to get into that for sure. Before we do, though, since I told my journey, you get to tell yours. So how did you get to being at the level you are, running cybersecurity for all these companies at Google? You can start the early years.
Yeah, my both my parents were into computing and sci-fi. So even my first computer, it was a Tandy SX1000 from Radio Shack. I mean, half of you don't even know what that is, probably. And I started playing these Sierra MS-DOS games, typing and stuff. So, my dad also dialed into bulletin board services and that thing. And my mom was what would be known now as a tester, right? But that she did that before it was cool, with banking software, and she still works in IT today.
Really?
So yes, yep. And so they really sparked my interest. I really credit them for that. And many broken computers later, the internet with dial-up came. I loaded my first machine with Linux off of 20-something Slackware floppy disks, right? So it was really my hobby, and I happened to get a job in high school on help desk for the first internet service provider in my hometown, and it sort of started from there. So yeah, I would walk from school to work and answer the help desk phone for hours every day, and I've been working ever since.
So I always love to ask, I usually ask guests on the show, what was your first job? What was your worst job? And so was that the first job where you got money?
Yeah, it was. It was funny. I think that was when minimum wage was $4.75, and I got a 25-cent raise, but then minimum wage changed to $5.15. So I was like, okay, that's interesting. So, but I answered the phone, and I had the sysadmin really took me under his wing. He's passed away now, but I really enjoyed that and just sort of working my hobby.
Yeah. It's funny, when we first were talking, I asked you, what was your sport, growing up? And you said computers.
Computing.
Which I love. That's great. Well, talk about the journey, through college and, the early years of before you got your master's. Kind of what was that like, kind of going from high school to university? Well, and did you know that you were going to go and get into IT? I mean,
I felt that was my thing, right? And I really enjoyed it. So after high school, which, to be honest, I barely got out of because I really enjoyed my hobby. I went to one semester of college at University of Louisiana, and I was offered to work full-time deploying routers all over the place, and I'm like, I'm gonna go do that. So I stopped. I did that. I got pretty good at networking. I got some certifications. I then got a job at what was Lucent Technologies. Again, half of me remember what that is, but it was a big company at one point. I traveled, and I don't know. I was like, what do I need? I don't really need to go, right? That was kind of where I was. I thought I was doing well. I was. I mean, I can't deny that.
At the time, you weren't going to think about going back to college?
I was not, right? Time went on. There was the whole .com crash. That was a kind of a painful time, right? When you don't kind of have these degree, right, to sort of get back into the workforce. So it took me about a year to get back in, and I was hired as a manager for an IT company in Louisiana, or for a generator rental company in Louisiana as their IT manager. And I was like 21 or 22 years old. So I think back at that, I'm like, what were they thinking? Oh my God. But I really, so I started managing like this big group of people, and slowly I started to realize I was being asked to do things that I'm like, what the heck am I doing, right? Particularly around decision making. I was there for 6 years. Married to my wife, I moved. I went to Capital One in Virginia. But a year and a half into that, I got a phone call. Actually, it was a LinkedIn message. And then, back then, I'm like, I didn't even know what LinkedIn, like, I had an account, but I'm like, that was literally the first thing I ever got on it was this recruiter asking me if I was interested in working for Microsoft. And I told my wife, I think this is a scam or something. We talked. I flew up here 11 interviews later. They don't do that anymore. But
11.
It was 11 total, and I couldn't even think after. Moved up, started in networking. I think I was the only network engineering program manager. Now there's like 100 plus of them. Don't even know anymore. But again, I was starting to be asked these questions, so that we were building this thing called the cloud, right? And networking is obviously important in hyperscale networking, network security. I was traveling all over the planet. I've been to China like 13 times in like a few years. Took over the networking deployments, and then I got this question: what are we going to do with this like $1 billion in capital for our network plan for next year? And I'm like, I don't even know what you just said. So I had to talk to my wife. I'm like, I have to like educate myself to continue to move up, because I'm being asked questions that I'm like, I have no idea how to even answer to. Talking to all these groups in the company and finance and all these other places, and I'm like, I have to like be able to make these decisions. So I decided in 2008, I went to WGU for like a semester, and I still kind of wasn't ready. But now, then it was like, I think 2014, I started again, and I was awake till 2 a.m. for 8 months straight to finish a bachelor's in IT management. Which, look, I remember finishing that last assignment, and it was like 1 a.m. or something. And I woke everybody up. Because I promised my mom I would finish college and all this stuff, right? And so it was super exciting. But then I said, okay, well, I think I still need some more. So I applied to the MIT Sloan program for executive MBA in that same year, that same month, actually. And I found out I got accepted. So it's a non-traditional path, right?
Yeah.
And it was really around career advancement for myself, being in this boom of industry that was changing the way we all communicate and operate.
Well, it's amazing that you were on the brink of not getting your master's. You ended up getting your master's because of the WGU in this program.
No, I didn't.
Or not master's, your bachelor's.
Yeah,
go
right.
get a master's at MIT.
Yeah.
Then you go get your PhD.
Right.
Where did you get your PhD?
George Washington.
At George Washington. And then Oracle, Microsoft, Google.
Yes.
So tell the audience a little bit about, you told them you're in cybersecurity, but let's talk about what you're doing there right now, because I think it's super fascinating what's happening. And as data centers and all this infrastructure gets blown up because of AI, the kind of job, the threat monitoring that you're doing just becomes critical. So talk to them, paint the picture of what it looks like to wake up in the morning and threat monitor all these Fortune 500 companies.
Oh, well, yeah, look, we all have been affected by some kind of cybersecurity event, particularly around like fraud, right? You've all had your credit cards changed, numbers changed, and maybe that's like a once-a-year thing. It still is for me, right? So we all feel it in a way. I think now it's almost become a fact of life, which is unfortunate. But for these big corporations that trust us and have trusted all of tech, right, for your whole livelihoods online today. You still wonder every morning what happened. So I wake up at like 5 or 6 a.m. and I wonder, what happened last night? So, I run a service. It's 24/7, 365 with a bunch of amazing people. And all the time that I spent and so many people spent, particularly in Seattle area, building the cloud really created another a version of a industrial revolution, right? Like the cost of computing, like it's like to browse the internet, like you can't even fathom how cheap that is, right? Like for every query you do. And a lot of hard work went into that. But all of these adversaries have access to the same thing. They have support from nations that need currency, right? And, trying to move the balance of that is very difficult. So you're always wondering, like, what's going on? Every time you see some new cool thing coming out, particularly in the AI space, you're like, well, how the heck that's going to be weaponized, right?
Yeah.
So there's this kind of bittersweet emotional roller coaster around innovation because people who want to do bad things have the same amount of access as anyone else.
Yeah.
So, I take a lot of pride in being able to really help our customers defend against these threats. It is this kind of infinite multivariable problem, which is exciting in a way as a kind of researcher guy, right? But it is a tough job, and it can a good day is when you kind of don't hear anything.
That's right.
So it's got this weird.
It's quiet.
It's quiet, and like no one's like, "Hey, thanks for keeping it quiet." Like that doesn't happen. So it's
It's funny because this week we've been talking so much about the amazing things that large language models have afforded us in the last 2 years, and the profits that people are making. The efficiencies that we're seeing. But I recently heard somebody say that there's ways and security threats around healthcare that can be something like, without even a doctor knowing, someone could poison the large language model and the underlying infrastructure, and they can make a diagnosis and give medicine to somebody. And there's a lot of foreign actors that want to see certain leaders killed, and that's an easy way for them to get to them. I know that's called data poisoning. Is that right?
Yes, right. Yeah.
So talk about some of these, like what's a significant threat that none of us are really thinking about that you have to deal with all the time?
Well, for me, I sort of moonlight as a chair of a nonprofit news organization. So I live in this kind of world of this misinformation, like because that's also considered a cybersecurity issue. So, you can have now, these companies creating models, and, their whole sum value of their entire company is in like one file, really. And that is actually very unique to the threat, and being able to, so building protections around, detecting any sort of tampering. It comes into like, eventually it boils into like, can you actually believe anything you see or hear online, right? And we have to be much more diligent about how we train, particularly our kids coming up, on how to really think about the information that they're taking in.
What's an example of that? You've got a 12-year-old. What do you tell him?
I give you an example I'm proud of. My son asked me I don't remember what it was, a particular question, but I said, why don't you just look at ChatGPT? He's in that inquisitive age of 10 years old around that time. He's like, how do you know that's real? I'm like, I raised you right. You know what I mean? So, as things become more convenient, they become more sticky, and I do think that we just have to be cautious around how we really intake information and what these models are telling us, and even in how we design our products, right? We know this stuff is not perfect. We have to clearly state this may not be a perfect answer, and that'll take me into some of the conversation around expertise and that importance of expertise. But I think that's going to always be. We'll never have a replacement for that, but it'll seem like it. And there are scenarios where decision making that impacts all of us can be tampered with. So those types of scenarios around data poisoning and those sorts of things around, that stuff's already productized as features, right, in what you can buy. So that tells you that it's out there.
Have you heard about the new AI browsers like Atlas and those things that are coming out? What do you think about those? I mean, how are you careful?
Well, for me, I'm always a believer in sort of deferring to expertise, right? And that's some of my, that's part of my educational journey, right? I think I mentioned it before, just the AV production, it's something people think they can maybe do, but no. I know, I try to film my son's lacrosse game, and it's like disaster. I'm who could possibly watch this, right? So I just stopped trying and I let the experts take care of it. You still have to have, I think, I don't even know if they teach this anymore, but, you learn the Dewey Decimal System and all. It's where is the trusted source of information? So that drives me in my day job and in my volunteering, my philanthropic work as well, as building these trusted sources and understanding where they are. And you can see there's these concepts of grounding in AI, right, where you can go and see, okay, do these link back to the actual information that you need? And in some cases, if you're doing all that clicking, it's why don't you just look there in the first place? So, there's always a bit of a skeptic, particularly for me, because I see bad stuff all day, right? So, I just worry about, I think it's with all things that become very convenient. Is it correct?
Yeah, so just kind of a level of skepticism going into some of those things. How about on the physical side? We talk a lot about the application layer in a lot of these conversations. There was a couple really good talks and panels on infrastructure, primarily data centers and energy. When you think about this, I know you deal with security threats that are mostly digital security threats, but when you think about that physical infrastructure, what comes to mind when you think about that?
A critical infrastructure is still so underinvested around that, because your digital estate, right, can be very damaging personally, but physical infrastructure can be a safety issue. You think about water systems and things of that nature, you think of dams being managed, those sorts of things. I feel that there's a crossover of even social engineering. You only need 2 or 3 seconds of someone's voice to completely recreate them in any emotional range, right? So you can say, hey, I need you to open this or close that or whatever. I mean, that stuff happens all the time, right? The phishing attacks that happen. I do think that that's one of our more critical areas that have just not had the right level of investment around critical systems, infrastructure, physical security. I've been responsible for that in a number of the roles I've had in the past. And the physical world is much more difficult to modernize because you've already built things, and tearing them out is a new capital cycle. So there's this just big lag time. And when you start building the new things in a building that's going to be built 4 years later, it's already old, right? So there is a challenge there, right? So the answer for that is, okay, well, let's connect everything to the internet. Well, that's bad, right? So yeah, so there's still this challenge, right, around having this hyperconnectivity yet being safe.
From your perspective, though, is it fragile? All of us, we plug our phones into the wall or our electric appliances into the wall, and we want there to be power, and we don't really think about how it gets there usually. And these systems both on the digital level and at the data center level. How fragile is it? How worried should we be?
Well, look, I mean, I do a lot of worrying on the behalf of a lot of people.
Thank you.
So I don't know if I'm the best barometer of that, but I will tell you, there's a lot of smart people, particularly in this room, like people I used to work with, that think about this every day, right, for you in these big hyperscale companies, right? So it's top of their mind every single day. And I do think the big cloud companies take it super seriously around ensuring at least their physical facilities, as well as any contracting with governments around the world, include these types of critical systems infrastructure security practices.
Yeah.
You know, but you know, you think about, like, I do think we're still specifically vulnerable to power grid attacks and water systems and
Yeah.
those sorts of things, which
Brownouts.
it just takes funding to defend that stuff. And
It makes me feel better that knowing what you know and seeing what you've seen, that you're optimistic. When you look into the future and you think about like what the possibilities, I mean, it seems like in the last 2 years, so much has happened so fast. And I know you felt it too. I mean, you're chasing the black hats and your white hats are trying to catch them. And so what do you see happening in 2030? Like, what should we be looking forward to? And how do you think about security that far ahead?
yeah, I mean, it's hard. I mean, trying to think about tomorrow, right? Like, or last night, but look, I mean, you know, I think we're getting a lot smarter in the inherent design of what we're trying to build and do. I think, you know, at the end of the day, like, you know, just kind of putting my doctor hat on, but, you know, a lot of cybersecurity you can think of it as a market inefficiency. It's kind of like an underinvestment in the building of in the production process itself, that everyone is getting much better at, right? So I think, you know, the kind of scale of like lifting the bar of the expense or tax that is required to do infiltration in computer systems is just going to continue to grow higher, but the fallback will still be like you just calling someone and saying, "Hey, I'm the boss. I need you to do this and give me your password." I mean, those are still like a high volume of attacks. It's still around education of the masses, right? But I think with the adoption of people begrudgingly accepting like two-factor authentication, even in their consumer apps and using hardware tokens and that sort of stuff, right? That definitely brings it down. But there's still there's still this feeling of inconvenience. But I would say that the way that it's been integrated in our day-to-day lives through our phones and all this other stuff is becoming a lot easier.
I was going to ask you about that, like if you were going to give some advice to this room, two-factor authentication.
Turn it on. It's annoying, but do it.
Yeah.
Like I made my whole family do it. It's like you're all doing it. And I was like, we are a cybersecurity family, and that's it.
It's happening.
Right.
Let's talk about the jobs in the future that we're going to see. One of the things that was inspiring to me that you know you fund a lot of young people in their journey to all sorts of professions. Will you tell the audience a little bit about that, and then let's also talk about what these jobs could look like in the future. I mean, I've heard that in some of these towns with data centers, you can't even get an electrician or an HVAC person. You can't even, you know, like there's some critical jobs, IT, that are going to be happening. So let's talk about that. But first, tell them about the way that you guys.
So with WGU Advancement, my wife and I have a scholarship. With this over the years, we actually just renewed for our second set. For our first that we did was named after my Aunt Sheila. She was my godmother. She passed away in her 30s, but she was a school teacher in New Orleans and taught me the value of education. So, you know, I felt like, you know, this is my wife, is like we should honor her through that. And what the focus was, Pell eligible students that were interested in joining IT or cybersecurity degrees through WGU, right? Because I found it transformative for myself. So helping folks that are wanting to get in or transition careers, you know, we've helped over a dozen people realize that. Now we have an endowed scholarship where, you know, my wife's a nurse practitioner, and so we've included nursing into that as well. Just thinking about the future of, you know, intersection of healthcare,
Yeah.
the need for cybersecurity talent. We need like everybody, right?
Yeah.
Like so.
So that grant is IT and nursing.
That's right. Particularly, the in the model of WGU where, it's actually like when for me, I think I was around 28. I'm a lot older than that now. When 30, 31, when I started going back to school, like I could actually use that stuff like immediately, right? Like it's a very different experience. I'm like, oh, I can use this tomorrow. Like, so that's actually what made me feel like continuing to go. Particularly and I did the master's program. I'm like, my bosses were like, what did you learn over the weekend so we can use it? And so that immediate application, because I was already working and doing the job and using these things, was very exciting and made me excited about learning and the academic process. So I felt like we got to help other people do that, right, from anywhere. So any of that life experience plays a big role in being able to be successful in the workforce and have a lot of great people that just need a chance.
So when I read about the scale that the hyperscalers are investing in data centers, for example, I mean, it's even hard to kind of fathom the numbers and the amount of kind of compute that's going to be necessary. When you think about the jobs that are going to be required, especially in your profession, so maybe there's some people in the audience that want to get into IT, want to get into cybersecurity. What are some of the things that we need to be thinking about and looking forward to as we scale at the rates that these folks are thinking about?
Yeah, I mean, I know that I can speak about cybersecurity pretty plainly, right? Like, we talk about AI, what are the jobs, is it taking jobs away? Well, I can tell you in the cybersecurity industry, you're faced with this like infinite multivariable problem all the time. And being able to even just scale yourself by learning these tools. Like I give an example, like a number of the features that have been launched in the product group I'm in, I actually took my team and said, it's okay to actually make your job suck less, right?
Use the tools.
So let's take some time and build the things that'll make your life easier in this job, right? And we shipped a lot of that stuff out around the Black Hat time frame. So I feel like, I mean, that's going to be that's a big part of it, right? It's you're actually, you are more people are going to be creators than kind of users of products, right? We talk about the agentic future, creating workflows between them, sort of scaling your expertise in ways that you couldn't have maybe imagined before. Like one example in cybersecurity is like someone gets a news article and then the boss is like, are we affected by this? And a month later, you're like, I have no idea, right?
Yeah.
Today, I mean, that's so common.
Yeah.
And you're like, why? I spent all this money on this stuff, right? But answering like those hard questions like that, I mean, there's just, I think it just would create more demand. The other thing I'd say is, one of my professors at MIT, he won the Nobel Prize last year. And he talks about, in his work, how leaders, like, Henry Ford is the example he talks about around the assembly line. We as leaders in the industry have to actually define the next jobs, right? Instead of letting the technology define us.
Yeah.
So I take that really seriously into heart and really work with my team to be progressive in that way, to say, what is the job, what is it gonna look like, right? Like, it's impossible today, right? Like, we have these threats that just appear overnight all the time. We know that's not going to change. They have the same access as us. So how can we leverage what we have to really change the game as the job?
Yeah.
Right. So that's what we do. That's what I think the healthy mix of AI and expertise looks like.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I appreciate all the kind of personal stories, and it's exciting to think about what the future could look like in the jobs that are going to be coming up. And I wonder if you could talk a little bit about that journey in the technology world, especially for people that are looking to go into those professions in maybe untraditional ways like you did. What was that like for you? And also, this is especially in Seattle, this is a profession that's filled with, with a lot of white males. Mm-hmm. And, you're an African-American guy, you're working your way through these systems. Like, how do you think about it now? And how did you think about it moving through these organizations?
Yeah, look, I mean, I grew up in a kind of a civil rights household, right? My dad is a retired police officer. All my aunts and uncles and my grandfather, they were all involved in helping people achieve equal rights in Louisiana. So, I think about it. I think it's important for me to even sit here and just be seen like, hey, you can't actually make it, right? I think that's important. I do, I give you an example. I was when I was in Microsoft, reported to a great VP, and we had a small round table with black males just talking about what it's like, right? He talked about what it takes to get promoted, and it was like, hey, you have to advocate for yourself. Mm-hmm. And I said, hey, that's literally the opposite of what probably most of us were taught. So he asked for a hands raised. It's like, were you ever taught to self-advocate? Is that a good thing or bad? And I was like, that we were told to just be happy you have a job, right? So that small example, right? It's I have to, you talk about there's a disadvantage we have just in that fact of being out there, being seen. Those are things I had to develop in myself, and just to be out here talking a podcast. I would have never done that. So.
And you're a tech nerd. You probably just want to put your headphones on and go do your work.
Exactly. I mean, I do it like ham radio at night, right? I mean, it's just very stereotypical. So, so it's important to me. It's important to the people around me. I brought my whole family up when I graduated from MIT to just see the world and stuff, right? I think that, we all deserve a shot, and I'm just doing my part.
I love it. Well, since you listen to the show, I always ask the same question at the end. So I think you're ready for it. But if you were to describe the future of work, the future of AI in 2 words, what would those 2 words be? And then you can elaborate.
Yeah, I mean, my future is more focus.
More focus.
More. Again, just I guess kind of where AI is, and even in the day-to-day conversations, even today, right? It's this new blog came out with this new vulnerability. Do our rules cover this? And one of my guys, he rolled this collab notebook out and just said, yeah, it's in these 2 already. I mean, that would have been a week of work before, right? I mean, it's so for these very you would think simple questions.
Yeah.
I think that the folks with the expertise that are involved in building these tools can really focus in the innovation area that makes life fun and interesting, right? So one of my rules is you have to have fun even at work. I try my best to be that guy to make that happen, and I do think focus is a huge part of that. They talked about that as a part of flow, focus, being able to focus. And that is a rare commodity, I think, in the workplace today. I think we can really make progress there. But again, as leaders in the industry, we have to keep in mind that this stuff is best used to make people more effective, right? It's not to really replace their expertise. I don't think it really can, but it can definitely scale the precious resource you have, right? For sure, to meet the challenge. So that's where I see it and where I'm hoping to drive it.
I love it. More focus. Well, Andre, thank you so much for talking with me and being on the podcast. And thanks all you guys for listening. I really appreciate it. It was really a nice time.
Great. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
That's a wrap. Thanks for tuning in. Such a pleasure to have Andre as our guest for this special live episode at Seattle AI Week. His insights into the daily realities of protecting critical infrastructure, while adversaries have access to the same powerful AI tools, resonated deeply. I was particularly moved by his commitment to being visible as an African American leader in tech and his work funding scholarships for the next generation of cybersecurity and healthcare professionals through WGU. I continue to be amazed by the guests we've had on the show, and I'm excited about the ones joining us in the near future. I truly appreciate you spending your time with us. Thank you for listening to this episode, and don't forget to subscribe to the Shift AI podcast on YouTube for more exciting interviews, and follow me on LinkedIn for posts about the changing landscape of AI and the future of work. The Shift AI podcast is syndicated by GeekWire, and we are grateful to have the show sponsored by WGU. Our show is produced by Crumpled Ink Media, and our theme music was created by Dave Angel.